Hey everybody, welcome to Love and Reload, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am super blessed and excited to be here with my friend Valencia Culbreath from Graebel Company. She is the champion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Valencia, how are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much for having me.
It is always a good day when you're here because we always get deep and we always leave. I always leave. I'm assuming everybody else leaves the same way. I always leave with a better understanding of myself and the world around me. So thank you for always being out there and courageous enough to have these conversations. I respect it and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you for honoring the topic, and bringing us all together on this one very important discussion. So
I think, yeah, I mean, and we're going to wait for people to come in here. And if you're coming in now, please go ahead and drop your name in the comments. Give yourself a shout out, give your company a shout out, give Valencia a shout out. Go ahead and get those comments, hit that like button, hit that heart button. Let's send a little love out there into the world. But yeah, I mean, Valencia, to your point, I'm just going to touch on that for a second. I appreciate you saying that. But I think it's important for people to make space for these conversations. I think a lot of times people are scared to have these conversations. They see them as a losing proposition for themselves personally. Like the upside is not nearly as bad as the downside, but I think we can reframe that. I think we can show, hopefully on this show, that these conversations are good to be had, that we all leave as better people, and that the risks are minimal compared to the opportunity to do really good and amazing things. So
absolutely.
Thank you for being courageous with me on this. Hey, ask questions, comments, get involved. This is a conversation not only between Valencia and I, but also with you, the audience. It's always better when you guys get involved. So thank you for being here. We got people checking in left and right. Keep these comments going. I want to hear from you. Stacy Huff, hi, Ben and Valencia. Looking forward to today's show. What's up, super producer Stacy? Stacy's the best. Can I just tell you for 1 second, can I just publicly declare my appreciation for Stacy Huff? Stacy every day, Milton said this after the show, Stacy every day sets us up for success, okay? She makes me look half decent, which is a miracle in and of itself. So thank you so much, Stacy. I appreciate you making it happen. All right, that was my soliloquy to Stacy Huff. Farrell Elliott, glad to be back on a Love and Reload conversation from Porch Light. What's up, Farrell? And where in the world are you right now, Valencia?
I'm in Denver.
Denver. What's the weather? The weather's been a hot topic last week and a half. What's the weather like in Denver?
It's roughly 60 degrees out here, sunny and blue skies. It's gorgeous.
That's like skiing weather out there, isn't it? Gosh, where's Bill Graebel on the slopes over here? He's probably up skiing in Vail right now. Get in the comments here. Valerie McKenzie, hi, Ben and Valencia Deluxe checking in for an awesome combo. What's up, Val? I think you're down in Houston. I hope you're doing well. Alan King from Germany, Dusseldorf. Nice. Little known fact, that's a doozy. The saying that's a doozy originated from Dusseldorf. Made cars. Henri Dussesoir, good evening, Valencia and Ben. Good evening, everyone. What's up, Henri? Georgia, very excited about this topic. Thank you, Georgia. Patricia. Hi, Val and Ben. Looking forward to today's topic. Is this Val you or is this Val? Do you go by Val? Can I even ask that?
A lot of people call me Val. Yeah.
Okay. I guess we haven't gotten there yet. Okay. Moving on. No, just kidding. I promise. This is a tough topic. We're going to have fun anyway, and we're going to also discover some things. Sally, hi. CWS Housing checking in from Denver. Looking forward to today's show. What's up, Sally? Hit that like button, y'all. Let's know. Let other people know we're on here. Shelly Lloyd, good evening, everyone. What's up, Shelly? Farrell Elliott, I would love a clarification of the difference between diversity, equity, and diversity, equality. Farrell, thank you so much for asking this question. This is going to be kind of the first question. We got a bunch of people coming on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody. Hit that like button. First question, Valencia, let's define some things.
Sure.
What's the difference between diversity, equity, and diversity, equality?
Let's not forget inclusion as well, right? Yeah. So diversity is all of the characteristics that we come to the table with. They can be visible, they can be invisible. And when you think about it in your spaces, diversity looks at who's in the room, right?
Okay.
And then you've got equity, which I like to correlate to access. Who's in the room is diversity, but then who's trying to get into that room but can't? That's when we're talking about equity and access. And it's systems and structures that are set up to serve some and then to oppress others. And if we think about our histories in any country or wherever you are in the world, right? What were systems set up to do and who were they set up to serve? So we really have to start looking at our own internal companies to think about what are those policies? What are the systems, whether they're formal or even informal, right?
So I just want to say, I'm sorry. I just want to stay here on this just for a moment because I want to understand it too and be able to kind of repeat it back. So diversity is who's in the room. Mm-hmm. Equity is who has a voice and they say so, and access in the room, if we're in the room analogy. And then, Go ahead.
I was going to say, so who's trying to get into the room but can't, right? Who's trying to get in? That's when we start thinking about what's equity.
Okay. And then so we talk about it used to be D&I and now it's DEI. So it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. How does the I play and what's the difference there?
So inclusion is around, if we want to keep talking about the room, right? So once you're in the room and you have those diverse bodies in your room, how are you utilizing that diverse talent and those diverse perspectives? Are they being included in the conversations, in the successes, right? Mm-hmm. So that's when you think about inclusion. Is everybody's voice being heard? Do people feel like they belong there?
This is so interesting because I'm thinking of, as we're using the room analogy, and I think we all can relate to this. And this reminds me of Hamilton, right? You know, to be in the room, right? And that was a theme from Hamilton, to be in the room where it started, where the room where the Declaration of Independence, I believe, was founded, and all the conversations, and to be in the room. And it talks a lot about that in the musical. And if you guys have seen that out there, shout out Hamilton, but you can watch on Disney Plus. Not a sponsor yet. But no, I think we've all been in a conference room, right? And the best ones are those conference rooms that have like the glass around them, right? So you can see in it and you can kind of tap on the glass and you can kind of be like, hey, can I? And then, oh, no, we'll fill you in. We'll let you know. Right. And so it's very much, I think we can all relate to seeing a conference meeting going on in the room. There's people who are in that room. There's people who are kind of walking by and kind of pretending not to look and kind of looking and kind of like wondering what's going on in there and maybe wishing they were invited to the meeting. And I think we've all had the thing where a meeting was called and we were like kind of on the border, like, do we get invited or do we not get invited? And if we don't get invited, what does that mean? And if we do get invited, what does that mean? And then you get into those meetings, and sometimes you're in meetings where you did get invited, but like just barely, and you don't actually get to talk, right? Maybe your boss even tells you going into it, like, listen, this is like my first day at work in 2 companies ago. Listen, you're going to come to this meeting. Don't say a word. Like, he literally told me that. I violated the rule before lunch like 5 times. At lunch, he told me, listen, I thought I told you, don't say anything in this meeting. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if I'm in the meeting, I'm gonna participate. But your analogy, I think, is so apt. And I just want to dwell on it for a second and sit here, because I think we can all, regardless of the color of our skin and our orientation and our gender and whatever, we can all relate to that analogy as employees, as workers. And I just think it's so apt.
Yeah. And then I want to go back to the equity versus equality piece too, because I think a lot of people really get those two things confused. And what is the difference between being equitable versus just being equal? And I like to think about it, with my 2 kids. Okay. I got 2 great kids. I love them equally, but I do not treat them equitably. I give them what they need to be successful, not only in their education journey, but in life, right? And if I were to say, well, I treated you both equally and I gave you both the same things, now go, they would end up in very different spaces in life. My daughter and my son are different people. So we need to give people what they need and to support that type of growth.
Wow, that's like so powerful to me, because this brings me back to when I was an early leader in my 20s. And And I thought that equality was treating everybody the same. Like I thought HR's directive to us was, you know, in order to be compliant, like treat everybody the same. You'll never get in trouble if you treat everybody the same. But when I'm treating everybody the same, I'm basically going by the book policy wise, and everybody gets the same, you know, whatever. But I wasn't, but so many people were disengaging. My team was disengaging from me because I wasn't treating them as individuals. I was treating them like as a number on a spreadsheet, basically. And I didn't realize why they were disengaging. I thought we could just, you know, I thought it was very clean cut. And that's so interesting because now I have kids and like they're different, like to your point. And like if I give them the same size shoes, that doesn't work. If I give them the same outfits, that one likes dinosaurs, one likes trucks. If I give them both dinosaur things, they're not going to be happy, right? And I think that wow, that's just fascinating. I love this.
You got to know your team. You got to know that we all don't start off at the same point either. And we all don't thrive under the same situations. So
yeah, that's so interesting. This is great. Let's keep these comments coming in. Keep the questions coming in. This is a safe place to ask questions and to learn. I want to unpack real life questions. I mean, I always say your questions are better than my questions. So just ask them in there. Timothy Nowak, hi, Valencia. I always get that. Greetings from a perfect sunny weather day in Denver, Valencia. Love seeing your work. For sure. Thanks. Let me ask you, Valencia, on this note here that Tim brings up, I really love your work as well. What got you, like, what made this like your work? Like, what made this your life work?
It's a good question. So what's my story? Is that what you're asking me?
Sure.
Yeah. So, man, let's see. How far back do we want to go? Probably.
Hey, we got
how long do we have?
48 minutes. So right. Knock yourself out.
I would say that I navigated life, right, as a Black female and did what I needed to do to survive. Had a great home and, you know, connected family and a great support system. And once I had kids entering into this world and things were different, right? It's different when it happens to you, but then when something starts happening to your kids and the role of me being a protector to keep them safe and to do all of these things, as a parent, I couldn't not do anything, right? And I couldn't look at them and say, I didn't try to change the world for you, right? Because I may not see the fruit, but I definitely will carry the root, right? It's one of those types of things. And so this is not even about me and it's not for me, but it's for those that will come behind me, right? And to that extent, I have to honor those that came before me, right? My mom was dragged out of a like a soda shop, I think it was, and handcuffed for sitting on a counter, right? If it wasn't for her voice, I couldn't use mine. If it wasn't for her fight, I wouldn't be able to fight. So I have to honor those that have opened up this pathway and ensure that I leave it better than I found it.
I love that. I so love that. I want to ask everybody that's watching this right now, as I get chill bumps and kind of like a little emotional. What are you doing for your kids and to leave the world better than you found it, and to maybe give them a little bit of a tailwind in whatever struggles they may have? Love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Leave those. Valencia, was there a moment like, I mean, I know you talk about having kids as being kind of a catalyst. Was there a moment when you identified that being a champion for diversity, equity, inclusion was really going to be central to your mission? And then like, you obviously have like this job, like we all have a job, but it's like how we do our job is what makes us different, right? Like I was a moving salesperson, but then I decided, okay, I'm also going to start like this podcast. It's going to have like a very, you know, change the world and be a better person kind of like central theme to it, right? And bring love to the forefront. Was there a moment when you said, okay, I'm more than like, you know, account manager, account executive, or whatever, and I'm going to bring this in there, and I'm also going to become the champion for DE&I at this amazing company? Was like, what was that thought to you? And the reason I ask is I want to inspire other people and give a blueprint to other people who might be in their company having the same role as you or me or whatever, that says, you know, I want to make a difference, but I don't really know how. How did you adopt this personal strategy, but also kind of professionally, if that makes sense?
Sure. Yeah, there's a two parts to this actually. When my daughter entered third grade in our neighborhood public school system, that's when things started to bubble up for us and really get the conversations around race and equity within schools, within classrooms, in my daughter being able to see herself represented in the curriculum, right, to that level. And when we're talking about history, what perspectives are we getting? What perspectives are missing? So I found myself doing a lot of co-teaching, if you will, because the narrative is written one way, but I need her to learn more than that. And so I got involved within the school district, championing equity within the school district as a parent support, and then ended up in another kind of a parent council, if you will, and helping to guide the district on the parent perspective of equity and diversity within our school district. And then when I started to think about, gosh, so much of what we do in the education space transfers incredibly well to the corporate space. When we talk about, are we seeing ourselves represented? What's the narrative that we're sharing? What's the messages that we're putting forward? Do we have diversity? Are we being inclusive, you know, within our spaces, our teams, you know, our organizations? And then obviously equity piece as well. So it just made so much sense to start having these conversations. And it was around 2016, 2017, a lot of stuff started to bubble up. It was a pretty divisive time in our country, so here in the US, and a lot of things started happening in our space with our kids, with my family around, you know, around race. And
well, wasn't that like I mean, I don't know if first is the right word, but I mean, there was a Black Lives Matter movement before this past year. I feel like 2017 was kind of like, we were doing Black Lives Matter, and then we kind of like forgot Black Lives Matter, and then Ahmaud Arbery,
right,
you know, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, you know, say their name, right? And like, and now here we are, and then now are we kind of forgetting a little bit, you know, and ebbing a little bit? But I mean, was that kind of, I mean, not to pour words in your mouth, but I mean, was that kind of,
yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't necessarily some of that for sure. But then it was also around safety for me. And so I wasn't feeling safe in my surroundings, not like in my own community, let's say, right? So I started just having some conversation and asking, you know, how can we do things differently? How can we do things better to ensure everyone feels like they belong, included in a diverse setting and safe? And it just really took off. And I've always said, you know, the company I work for, with our values of just truth, love, and integrity, right? We've been overly ripe for this work. And it was just always supported and always committed. So,
and shout out to the leadership at Graebel, and shout out to Bill Graebel and all the leaders there for actually, you know, kind of walking that and honestly allowing us to learn from Valencia today. I mean, there's so many people who don't even get a chance to come on here and talk about these topics, much less actually formally be, you know, kind of appointed as a champion, you know, global champion for DE&I work. So shout out to Graebel. I think they should be commended. I think we should call that out, you know, stuff like that. But so and we got a lot of great comments coming here. I'm going to, you know, get to these questions too, and keep these questions coming. We're going to get to these, but take me through that talk, if you don't mind. I mean, I know this is personal. I mean, this is kind of the nature of what we do on this show. We ask like questions like this. But I mean, okay, so you're having these 2016, 2017, you're having things in your personal life, you're dabbling and taking baby steps with school and co-teaching and taking care of, some safety concerns in the in the community, to the point where you say, okay, I'm going to bring this up at work. And what was that conversation like? Because I just want to model that a little bit for people that are watching this and want to take that step, but maybe you're looking for the courage and the model for that.
Well, I mean, I would be lying if I said it wasn't a bit terrifying, right? When you start bringing up these types of conversations, they can get uncomfortable and you're not really sure where everyone is, right? Either in that type of journey with the language or just an awareness perspective. But yeah, it's, I've said this before, and I can't remember if I've shared this with you. I said, if I'm not willing to risk losing my job for what I believe in, then I'm not doing the work. So these are the kinds of concerns, though, that are Black and brown and frankly LGBTQ colleagues are having. I'm kind of talking to white folks out there, white men out there, just brothers. Okay, I'm talking to y'all right quick. I know sometimes white folks be like, oh gosh, why are they always playing that card? Right? These are internal monologues we have, but we have to understand how hard it is to even bring that conversation up, not knowing where other people are on the topic, to blindly kind of walk in faith and walk in conviction and say, I'm going to bring this up come what may. And so we need to really be empathetic. We need to listen. We need to support. If someone has the courage to actually say we need to have this conversation, we need to be allies for this. And I hope that y'all hear me on that. And I'm sorry I interjected, Valencia, but you were saying. No, that's great. And bringing up the topic of allies, I have incredible allies in the leadership, which has allowed me to sit here with you today, and have this conversation. One of our leaders talks about, let's get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We've named it. And I think that's important. Let's just call it what it is. And then eventually let's normalize that so we can be less comfortable having these tougher conversations. Yeah, for sure. I want to make some time here for some questions from the audience and some shout outs. Shout out to Darren, who actually was the person that introduced us. Yeah. So shout out to you, Darren. That was like a year ago. I feel like we've grown a lot together at Valencia. we've got to do some things. Okay. Yeah. Jamie Massler, hi Valencia. Do you work with other companies' diversity programs or just within the Graebel organization? Seems like you have so much information to share with community and organizations. Love this question. Have some thoughts of my own. Valencia? So what I've been able to do is share in other forums around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's been really great. Sharing out to clients, supplier partners, relocation councils, that sort of thing. And then, yes, of course, internally with Graebel.
So I'm going to make a suggestion. I love unsolicited suggestions and reckless speculation. Those are my hallmarks. No, but one thing I always loved about Graebel Alliance as a supplier is we would go there and we would really do deep dives on things that we knew were important, but like people don't really do deep dives on. One was like data privacy and protection and integrity, data integrity. And I think that DE&I would make an excellent deep dive breakout conversation at the next Graebel Alliance, whenever that may be. I know that y'all just did one and it was great virtually, but I would love to, and shout out to Andy Pierce and Bill Graebel if y'all are watching this on replay or live. But I would love to see a DE&I breakouts hosted by the illustrious Valencia, or Val, as we say. Just saying. Nicola, history being taught in school is not objective because one predominant white perspective, subjective and untrue. Many countries suffer from this in one form or another, and this needs to change. We are already too late with this. Yeah, real quick tips just as parents. Can we just sidebar here as parents? we send our kids to school. We read the textbooks that are written often a long time ago by certain perspectives. How do just some tips for like co-teaching, I think was the word you used. Mm-hmm. How do we broaden those perspectives? Any tips?
Yeah. Well, I would always ask my kids to challenge the narrative. So what are you hearing? Who's missing? Who's telling this story? And then to seek out the opposition, because there's always two sides, right? When you're talking about, let's say, the first settlers, right, and our indigenous population, it's a different scenario depending on who's sharing that story. And if you were to hear the history from an indigenous person or native, it's going to look different than the colonists. So those are the things that I asked my kids. What's missing? Whose voice isn't in this story? And what would they say? So we have to be intentional about seeking out the other side.
And intentionality, is so important in so many things. It's important with physical health. It's important with mental health. It's important with, learning and getting diverse perspectives. But it's work, it's work. This is one of the themes that came up a few days ago when we were having this conversation around sourcing diverse suppliers, and one of the comments was like, okay, but like everything I've got is working well right now. Why fix something that's not broken? This is the narrative. And encoded in that was like I don't want to say I'm lazy, but it's like, why go out of my way to make work for myself? What is, and I guess I would ask you, like, what is the upside? I hate to say ROI because it's kind of a ridiculous concept, I feel like, but what is the justification and case on a personal level and a business level in your opinion, your expertise for DE&I in our lives and our businesses?
Yeah, well, I mean, the research on this topic has been heavily reviewed for, I would say, for and against, right? But when you look at the outcomes of diverse populations and how companies can perform, so this does go back to, right, ROI, I guess, at the end of the day, companies with diverse talent and diverse teams and organizations typically outperform those that are more of a monolith, right? And that's important. So when we're thinking about going global, well, we're already global, right? We're everything we do can essentially be bought and sold across the world. We're no longer stuck to our own little, neighborhoods and communities from a buy and sell perspective. And so if we're not representative by demographic and all the different demographics, including age, I think age is a huge one, race, gender, and getting those perspectives and being able to have those at the table to bring more innovation and creativity and perspective to the table around making decisions, that's huge. I mean, we can potentially have missteps, I think, without diverse perspectives weighing in on some of the things we may want to do that could be potentially very harmful for a company.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point, right? I mean, if you're developing a product and service and you have a monolithic input, right? Meaning everybody's kind of the same, who's at the table, right? Who's in the room designing this. And then you spend a year, developing it. And then you go to market only to find out that 80% of the people who weren't included in the development of it don't actually like what you're selling. It's going to be a failure. Right. So, I mean, like, that's just one super practical thing that I've seen happen, time and time again. Great point. We got some great questions here. I'm going to try to honor all these questions here. So let's see. Chris Hunt. What's up, Chris? Hi, Ben and Valencia from Tampa. How can companies remove or minimize potential biases from the hiring process by even the most well-intentioned talent acquisition team?
Great question. Yeah. And it's something I think that has to always be top of mind as you have recruiters looking for talent. So if you have expectations that you want a diverse slate of candidates, then you have to cast a wider net. You have to go into areas or seek out different groups that maybe you normally wouldn't, or maybe that normally wouldn't even see your job postings. A couple things that I think are incredibly important is if you're positioned to say, I want diverse talent and I want to increase diversity in my company, from a visual perspective, what does your website look like? Do you speak to it? Do you honor your commitments somewhere that you can even be appealing to a candidate? So, it goes both ways, right? Let's look wider and farther, and let's make sure we are appealing from a diverse candidate perspective as well.
And I think back to something you said earlier about, when you spoke up in your company and not knowing where people stand on things, right? And one of the nice things about all of the public expressions of support and solidarity during Black Lives Matter and during the LGBTQ stuff last year was that people knew where some companies stood, at least publicly, where they professed to stand, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's nice. And I know I personally kind of took a mental stock of that and said, hey, let me, if I can, support these companies because we have like beliefs. I would think as a person, as a company who's hiring talent, that those talents would look back and say, where do they stand on this? Oh, they're conspicuously silent on this, or or they're out front on this, and that would be attractive to me as a talent looking for a
company. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a well-intentioned team is always what we want to assume good intent, right? We always want to assume good intent. And when we have implicit associations, that's what we can get tripped up on. And so, I'm not a huge fan of the idea of training, right? So how do you educate and then look at all of the kind of the lower hanging fruit of things that you can do within that hiring process, with removing names, removing, where they studied, because you don't need to call out, oh, yeah, I'm a CU buff as well. And then all of a sudden there's this automatic like for this person who possibly also went to the school I graduated from. So let's not assume gender or race, sometimes even by a name. We don't need to know where people live right now.
Does LinkedIn make this worse? Like I feel like there's this thought that like we're always better, like we're better now than we used to be. And I think in a lot of cases, like that's somewhat true. But in some ways, like segregation is kind of worse than it was maybe a few decades ago. When now you look at everybody's like printing on a LinkedIn, resumes didn't used to have pictures on them. And now when a recruiter submits people, what do? They print out the LinkedIn, PDF or whatever, the page, and they send it over. And so, I mean, I feel like in a weird way, maybe we're kind of taking a step backwards from inclusive hiring or diverse hiring practices.
Well, I would say avoid LinkedIn.
You telling me to avoid LinkedIn, Valencia, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm telling you. There are other ways to do it so that you're not swayed. And really just looking at skill sets. And before you're going out to hire talent, you need to identify what those look-fors are, and then setting up a process for that everybody has the same experience, the same questions. They're interviewed by a diverse slate of, internal folks, etc. So, there are definitely some tips and tricks that can be done to help.
And I told everybody I'm going to get to these questions, and I swear, I promise I'm going to really try. But I think a lot of people, because there's a lot of people looking for jobs right now, right? So like how jobs are, how we hire today, I feel like is like on everybody's mind for so many reasons. And I will tell you that in my opinion, networks are so important because resumes get sorted by algorithms. They end up in a pile this big. But if you know somebody, the hiring manager, or you know the hiring manager's boss or something, a lot of these meetings and these get to know yous, kind of replace the first interview. And you have such a leg up if you have these networks. And I think that this is something that is not talked about nearly enough. I mean, we always talk about, oh, you should go table at the HBCU, or, oh, you should, put more people of color in your copy and, whatever. But I mean, we're not even talking about the fact that these networks, and I hear people say good old boy network, whatever you want to call it. There's networks that exist of usually people who are like-minded in some area. Maybe they're the CU Buff Alumni Association. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're the AKA, sorority association. Maybe they're, but whatever. There's these networks of people that exist. Maybe it's, we all join the same country club, right? And of course, there's all these like code that goes along with all these things, right? And it's like, but these things are huge. And it's like, if people aren't in these networks, they're not having access to a lot of these high potential opportunities. They're not having access to, I just feel like it's so, we don't talk about it enough. And I think it's huge.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And right, that creates a bit of inequity, just as you stated. Right? Who knows who?
Yeah. Let's get through some of these comments here because I want to honor these people that have tuned in here. Let's see. We've got some people in the UK. What's up? Oh, look at B in the house. What's up, B? Sally. Ben Ivory. Nice. Top 5 Ben right there. Top 5. Zach. What's up, Zach? LinkedIn user. Emily here from Denver. Look at this. Quigley, what's up? Janet Turner, Lisa Ross, Simon Hood. Congrats, Simon. I met Simon at a Graebel Alliance meeting for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. Georgia has a question. Do you have any tips on how to address issues with specific people in the organization who are pushing back on this topic, besides publicly shaming them?
Yeah, well, I would definitely recommend not doing that.
Oh, oops.
So you're always going to have resistors, right? Immediately once you start talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think understanding where that comes from, right? Why do people typically resist? One, maybe they're just unaware, right? And they just don't know what they don't know. So they think everything's fine. Why are we doing this? You can have resistors who might feel like they might lose something. It's typically power, right? And so I think how we frame our goals around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we all benefit, even the dominant groups or the dominant culture benefits from having diversity within the organization. And it's not about removing people. It's about adding to the group and adding value, additional value and additional perspectives. So that's kind of where I'm at with the resistors. And then of course you're going to have people who are just overtly, one of the isms or have phobia.
Valencia's really trying not to get in trouble right now. Okay, let's stop. I'm gonna bail you out. You don't gotta. I'm gonna say some things here that, Georgia, 100,000%. I've been in organizations like this. I've been in organizations where D&I was the punchline of a joke. I've been in organizations that were actively not DE&Ing. And I'm not there anymore. And that's really hard because to Valencia's point earlier, are we really willing to not have a job anymore over this? And I think as white people, that's a lot of times an easy no. I'm not willing to, because I have the luxury of being able to walk around without this problem staring me in the face every day. Because of the color of my skin, right? And so it's so easy for us to not dig in on this. And that's an issue called White Solidarity, which was in a book, White Fragility, that we read earlier last year. And I think it's like a real thing when it's named. I think we start to see it everywhere. You know, when racist jokes are made or things are said, we don't say anything. You know, we just kind of go along, get along, whatever. When people are digging into this, in my opinion, and Valencia is 100% correct. It's because they're afraid that DE&I means that their white privilege or male privilege or white male privilege is being compromised and undermined to some degree, right? And once you start to enjoy something and benefit from it, it's hard to acknowledge that you have a leg up, and you want to maintain that status quo. I think is what a lot of people are in the situation of. So I think understanding it and listening and trying to unpack and understand where they're coming from, because they're afraid. They're really afraid. And I know it's kind of laughable to a lot of people because what do they got to be afraid of, right? They're, the privileged, right? Why do they got to be afraid? But they're afraid of losing what they have. And I think it's a much more nuanced conversation with what Valencia is saying, to say that a rising tide lifts all ships. And if we have a diverse organization, we all benefit because of all the, we're going to just do better as an organization, which is going to make everybody do better. But sometimes people can't get out of their own little world and say, wait, are you coming for my job? Are you coming for my promotion? Are you coming for my kid's seat at this school? Right. These are the real conversations, Georgia, and I appreciate you asking it. Man, we're getting deep here, Valencia. All right, okie dokie. Jessica Miller, hi from Global LT. We started our DEI team last year, and we're looking forward to being inspired by what one of our clients is doing in this area. How are you approaching talent management hiring in terms of DE&I principles?
Sure. No, again, a lot of that is really around. So we've been focusing on implicit associations quite a bit, because those, I think, are the hurdles that really get in our way, and we'll rely on those snap judgments of our unconscious bias to make decisions. So if we can be more objective about the entire process from start to finish, from where we source, how we interview, and then how we evaluate, is important. And then going beyond that, we need to think about our onboarding as well as retention. And are we creating growth and career opportunities for all of our talent?
Yeah, I think that's that second phase that's super important, is the mentorship, right? Because it's like, okay, once we've got a diverse team here, we've achieved that kind of from a very superficial check the boxes kind of everything looks kind of nice and balanced and even and representative. Okay, that's cool, but are they all at this level? Have they been mentored up to this level? Mm-hmm. What does the C-suite look like, right? I mean, that was, I think, something that came out with some of the companies that have been really out front on some of these issues. It's like, okay, I hear you, and your customer base is very diverse, and your store associates are very diverse, but what does your C-suite look like? And is it only the chief diversity officer, right? Is that the only person of color in the room, right? So, anyway, moving on. Dano, looking good. Ben and Valencia, so excited. The only thing worse than a closed door is no fingerprints on the outside trying to get in. I love your analogies. It's so funny. This is great. Richard, hey, this is confusing. You're on the wrong side of the screen, Ben. Has anyone mentioned that? You are always on the left. Are you not? I am on the left. Valencia, when looking at DE&I, does this include small business, women-owned, veteran-owned, or is it exclusive to gender, race, etc.? Yeah, that's part of the definition step. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk about supplier diversity, and I think that's what you were talking about earlier, Ben, and I know that's extremely important to you. I would say over the last year, I've heard more about being more intentional about going to diverse supplier networks to support that, wealth sharing, if you will, or redistribution and opportunity. So it absolutely would include who you buy from. been, and I know you were working on this quite a bit.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think, it was so interesting. One of the big eye openers for me, and I'm going to lose some people here, and maybe I'll gain some people too. But on Netflix, there was this documentary series. I know people are going to look at me and roll their eyes. Anyway, Killer Mike, this rapper from Atlanta, did this thing where he was like going to buy black, right? And he was going to buy black for like, I want to say like 24 hours. It wasn't even like a long time. He was going to buy black for like 24 hours, and he was like in Georgia, and he had to make it from like Decatur to Athens to do a show or something, right? And he could not buy black. He just couldn't. He'd find a black restaurant, but like the pork and the vegetables were grown by like big agriculture. He couldn't ride the bus to the show because he couldn't get an Uber. He couldn't, end up renting a bicycle from some guy's shop. The point is, we need to support the economic structure of the black community. We need to support black businesses. We need to support businesses of color. We need to support, diverse people. We need to support service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. Somebody comes back with PTSD from a war, and they're trying to get on their feet and start a business. Like, we need to support people, right? And I think we need to be intentional about our dollars. I'm a very big vote with your dollars person. And I mean, I can't, everybody can't go out and hire somebody. Everybody can't go out and mentor somebody to the C-suite. But I think we can take a half a second more, and when we look on Yelp, say, search black businesses, right? I did that actually with for a cleaning company when I did my move out. It's like how can we just do a little something extra to take another step to say, how do we support people? And what that does is it supports businesses that are owned by, let's say, people of color or other disadvantaged groups, but then that filters back down to their kids, which creates opportunity for them, and it starts to create generational impacts. And that's my rant on that. But yeah, it's kind of a good thing to do. Sorry, am I losing everybody? I don't know.
No, that was good. That was good. Generational impact is huge. Right? For
sure.
And you create cycles.
Yes, 100%.
Changing lives.
Yeah, and this actually goes to, I'm going to actually segue here to my friend Elizabeth Soley over at Jacob Street. Shout out to Jacob Street. How can small businesses help and be a part of an inclusive workforce? And I know, and I'm just going to riff here for a second, go into this a little bit. I know Elizabeth is like a solopreneur, right, or a very small company. Mm-hmm. So I think what she's getting at is I can't hire. I don't hire anybody. So how can I contribute and have an impact?
So now tell me, does this person offer a service?
I think my child is with me. Hey, Stevie, how you doing, buddy?
Aww.
Yeah.
Hello.
We're gonna teach him. Here. Hey, Steve, can you wave? Hey.
Adorable.
And, sorry, everybody. Can you go play with Danny now? Okay. Anyway, we can continue. Just let's keep it moving.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I mean, this is what it's like working from home, right? So yeah. I sometimes
we're teaching the kids, right?
Yeah.
The kids have to know what we're up to,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. All right.
I think we're good. Well, I mean, so whether you have a large or smaller impact on a workforce, like you said, if you are a one-woman show or one-man show or however you want to call it, I think there's other things that you can do that's not necessarily just an impact on a workforce, but you can be an impact in a community. You can be an impact in your neighborhood. You can be an impact to your children, right? And that's what I think, the cycle of change has to start somewhere, and it always starts with ourselves. So what can you do from a personal perspective in your growth and journey to be an impact in other people's lives, regardless of touch?
Yeah, I love that. And Elizabeth, I would say mentorship, that's a great way to start too, right? I mean, when I talk to my friends, they often talk about a lack of social capital, and they talk about a lack of role models sometimes. And, we talk about networks as well, right? Earlier. And I think taking the time and being intentional about mentorship and mentoring disadvantaged people, or people from disadvantaged backgrounds, I should say. And I think that's a real opportunity. So there's a lot of people that probably want to be just like you, Elizabeth, and be entrepreneurs and do what you're doing, And I think giving that access to opportunity, even though you can't hire them, teaching them how to do what you did. I think that.
I love that.
Yeah. Nicola, boxing and categorizing people is rooted even in our use of language. We define things and therefore tend to simplify them and lose so much of the necessary perspective and added value along the way. We are also so much more than the culture we come from, the language we speak, the religion we belong to, accept people for their effort they put in, their education, their career path, no matter who they are, give a chance.
Oh, yeah. I appreciate that.
Valencia, do you encounter resistance or a resistance, from my French friend, to D&I based on fear of people being afraid of losing their job and being replaced by someone else?
I wouldn't say personally no, but I do see that in the industry on where that fear can come from and why people end up resisting. And it's, I remember about 4 years ago, and Ben, you might recall this too, there was like a slogan that people had on their shirts, and I saw it on Facebook, and it said something around equality. There's enough room for all of us, right? It's not pie, or I'm blocking on exactly how it was worded. But it doesn't mean that once we add that we're taking away. We're not doing any replacements. So
yeah, I think it's super. This is the anti-immigration argument too. At least in the United States, I'm sure. Actually, pretty sure Brexit and all, a lot of other things. There's a very nationalist movement in the world right now, is what I'm seeing, at least. This is my opinion. And I feel like it's the same thing. It's a scarcity mindset. It's if we let, I'm just going to be very super honest. These are my words. These are not Valencia's words, right? But the mindset is, if we let Mexicans come over here and take our jobs, then, we white people are not going to have jobs anymore, right? And so we need to limit immigration, right? And what's funny is our global mobility partners around the world, or around the United States, are talking about the shortage of skilled workers and H-1B, visa holders coming into the United States. But the reason that was like that was because of an anti-immigrant rhetoric that was going on in the States, due to this scarcity mindset around preserving the privilege of certain people in this country. And I feel like it's the same thing. And if you go back, if you're a movie fan, as I am, I'm a big media fan, right? You go back to Gangs in New York, right? Gangs in New York with Leonardo DiCaprio and Daniel Day-Lewis, and everybody, every wave of people that came off the boat was hated, broke through, became like the new lower class, and then hated the next wave that was coming in because they were afraid that they would take their small little position on the bottom of the totem pole. And I feel like we need to recognize that this is the mentality, and we can laugh about it when it's a movie called Gangs in New York and how ridiculous it is that the Italians hated the Irish, and the Irish hated the Poles, and the Poles hated the Blacks, and the Blacks hated the, and so on and so on and so forth, right? But it's different sometimes, to Henri's standpoint, when you're in an office setting with someone who actually still feels that way, because they feel like their job is in jeopardy. And we need to really make a case and take the time to listen to them, and then also educate them on a rising tide lifts all boats. Rising tide, that's fine, something like that. And it's a little bit more of an abstract concept than there's one job, two people. That's a very concrete concept that people. Henri, struggle's real. I have these arguments all the time. Family members, struggle's real. Gosh, we're running out of time. Valencia, thank you for letting me go on these little rants here. We've got some, this is, Henri here. Richard, that's not, some of our friends are French Chinese, and they had the same problem. You talk about in France and Germany. Wife is German, and kids occasionally have trouble because at school in the UK because of that. Yeah, it's interesting. This is, okay, we've got, and the menas here. What are the meaning? Okay, this is our last question before we get into our top 5 here. Mena, shout out to Mena's, because Mena's up at like 2 a.m. right now in Dubai or whatever it is. So we gotta give Mena some space here. What are the measuring tools to check if the company is applying diversity, equity, and inclusion? Basically, what are your tasks on a daily basis? How do you measure this? How do we measure this? Say we want to do this, right? A lot of times things don't actually happen until we start measuring them. So maybe give us some tips.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and a lot of things can't happen unless you've educated your population. You can't measure and expect people to do, well and being more equitable and more inclusive if you haven't given them the tools and the awareness to do so. I like to look at, there's different ways that you could look at your engagement with your organization. And we have a survey that we always do, and we have specific diversity and inclusion questions, right? And then eventually I'd like to get even more of a drill down in that space to really understand baseline. And then, I mean, there are so many things that can be done, and it's just kind of up to I would say the organization to say how far they want to take it. Yes, there's optics. Absolutely, because from the outside looking in, that's all other people see, even though some diversity is invisible. You also can, once you've been able to teach and educate your workforce around how to be more inclusive, why not tie that to not necessarily in a performance evaluation, but as a part of just goals? It doesn't need to be tied to money necessarily, but we should be able to show and share what we've done and how we are doing it. When we're getting, from a sourcing perspective, you can add additional places. There are lots of, let's say you're hiring for IT, right? There's, it's predominantly men who are in those roles. So are we posting in, women in tech? Are we, looking at those different things? So you can see your changes and see your opportunities, which should organically help to bring results.
Yeah, great stuff here. Sandra's got a comment. Within a company, leadership sets the bar for the rest of their teams. Tolerating or enduring differences versus celebrating and appreciating different experiences, perspective, ways of thought, or look or style of communication or gender is so obvious, regardless of how smooth one might think they are. We all need to be bold and wise in calling out faux support and offensive attitudes. Cindy says, Sandra, I 100% agree. Starts at the top. Accountability is critical. This is something that Sandra brings up a great point about faux support. I'm using I guess she used quotes. These are my air quotes. I feel like there's a lot of talk right now. I feel like the public talk and rhetoric and awareness kind of does this, right? Depending on how many people have been killed lately, right? It goes up and down. But how do we move from talk to action? It bothers me, it concerns me that we lose momentum. Mm-hmm. Again, you mentioned it before the show. Today's the 1 year anniversary of Ahmaud Arbery being shot while running, right. Literally just running, just jogging, exercising, right. Shot dead in the street, followed, hunted down, and shot. And we talk about it, and then we don't talk about it. In fact, I forgot it was the 1 year anniversary. Brought to my attention, so thank you. We lose track. How do we move from being prisoners of the moment in the moment to actually sustainable change?
Yeah. Well, a lot of what you're talking about is that performative, diversity, equity, inclusion, and we don't want performances. We want action, we want things that are tangible, and we want it to be relevant and consistent. So what I would offer is the conversations can't go away just because Ahmaud Arbery has been buried, right? And has moved on. Because it's what builds up to those actions that are still very much a part of our community and our culture and our history, and will be a part of our future if we're not continuously talking about it and we're not being, what we talked about earlier, intentional. It's intentionality. It's doing the work every day.
Yeah. All right. So we got a top 5 here. I always like playing games. You want to play a little game, Valencia?
Sure.
I know we have like. Okay. I promise we're gonna have a little fun today. All right, we're gonna play a little game. Everybody, thank you so much for getting involved in the comments. Keep the comments coming. Hit that like button. Throw that little green applause button out there for Valencia. Let's show some support here. Appreciate Valencia so much being so candid, willing to have these conversations. Let's do a little top 5. Stacey, we got a top 5. There we go. Valencia, what's your top 5 today?
All right, so we got top 5 tips for being a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive company.
Ooh, all right. I think we all want that, even us solopreneurs out here, All right, number 5.
All right, so be appealing to diverse candidates. You have to, because when you're going out to source talent, they're also interviewing you at the same time.
That's right.
So think about that.
Yeah, and we talk about like the war for talent, and the fact that talent, like real good talent, is a seller's market. You need to be appealing. Yeah, that's all I'm saying about that. Number 4.
All right, I said it earlier, cast a wider net in your recruiting efforts. You have to go broader than your average reach. When you think about the demographics of your location, and it's going to vary by where you are in the world. Diversity is going to look differently here in the US versus what diversity may look like in India and what diversity may look like in Singapore. So understand what would make your company or your teams more diverse and cast a wider net.
I mean, is this as simple as going to HBCUs? Well, give me help me with some specifics, because wider net. Okay, cool, got it. But give me some pointers.
Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier, there's so many networking groups.
Yeah.
I mean, they're everywhere, and getting connected or involved with, if you're looking for recent grad type hires, yes, you can go to historically Black colleges and universities, but you can also go to our Latino serving institutions and our Indigenous serving institutions for that population. So there are ways to get those new grad type hires, but then there's also legacy things. There are different networks for different things. Women in tech, if you're looking to increase from a gender perspective. So it's about finding out where they are, who they are, and I would say yes, you can go to LinkedIn for that though. That might be the easiest way to find them.
Go to LinkedIn, but don't look at people's picture. All right, number 3.
Don't train your people on the concepts around DE&I. Educate them and then hold them accountable to what they've learned. Put it into action. Model it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was actually talking to a CEO the other day, and he was like, we're gonna have a town hall, and I'm gonna call this out. I'm calling out racism, calling out, our complicit, implicit bias and our complicitness in this problem. And I was like, dude, I'm like shocked and amazed, and you're my hero. I think that's so awesome. Model it. Love it.
And you can't just educate it like I said, training. I hate the idea around training in this space.
So you hate my breakout at Graebel Alliance idea? You hate that idea?
No, it's not training. It's education. Okay. But yeah, let's layer it into all of our spaces. Everywhere we go. Why is it not a topic? But not just a topic in isolation. Layered into how we perform, how we work, how we offer services. It should be eventually be natural.
Yeah, love it. Number 2.
Model and reward inclusive behaviors. As leaders in companies, they have to model it. And you just gave a great example around a CEO who said, I'm gonna name it. I'm gonna speak about it. I'm gonna talk about it. And basically that helps it to be okay for others to speak and talk about it too. And those that are inclusive should be rewarded. Give a shout out, highlight them, spotlight them.
Yeah, one of the cool, I remember I was giving a presentation to a kind of a boardroom, kind of a room, huge table, you know, and there's always like two people that talk a lot, and then like a bunch of people just listen. And there was this one CHRO who went around the table after the presentation and said, "Sally, what do you think? Gary, what do you think? Joe, what do you think? Sally, you know, whatever, name." And I'm like she was so intentional about it. And they're all like, you know, some were like, yeah, I think, you know, sounds good, or no way. And some people just went into like these amazing opinions that they were like not about to just offer unless they were asked specifically, what do you think about it? And I think that kind of behavior is so cool. Number 1.
Be loud about your commitment, and that includes dedicating resources. We have to be able to dedicate resources to do this well, just like we dedicate resources to do well when it's technology, when it's in your sales efforts. This is no different. So be loud and proud about what you're doing, say it, name it, and then throw some resources behind it.
I mean, should every and I go back to the fact that you are the champion of diversity, equity, inclusion globally at Graebel, and I think that's so cool. And I can't think of another company in our space. I'm sure there's others, but I just can't think of any that have someone similar who they've just appointed and anointed to say, this person is it for us to make sure that we're bearing the torch and that we're actually layering this in everywhere. I would think that this would be like kind of a step. And I guess, so here's the thing. Okay. Here's the thing. There's a flip side to what you just said, right? There's a flip. So, okay. I could say Sally is our champion of diversity, equity, inclusion. And now I've kind of boxed it in and said, checked on that, Sally, you know, kind of like the old, you know, the CDO, the chief diversity officer, who's like the tokenism, right? Like thing. And then I just kind of say, well, I did that, you know, Sally's it, you know, whatever. But like, we have to like go behind, it would seem like we need to go behind that and like really support Sally and going into all parts of the organization so that she feels safe and, you know.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So if Sally's who we're talking about, Sally should be a part of nearly every decision and department and work hand in hand because it is everywhere. It doesn't live in isolation.
Yeah. And then the other thing that you said actually with I think it was your last one, about being proud about it, right? I mean, because before you said like, okay, we don't just want performances, right? Yep. But also like performances are like also kind of like the first step too, in a way. We just don't want it to die off. We want to keep, I mean, my take on it, like we want to keep performing. We don't want to just like do a show, say we did it, and then go back to doing whatever we were doing before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You gotta have some meat behind it, some substance behind it. You know, you can't have a performative, you know, allyship or, you know, just let's say we stand with in solidarity, but then have nothing, no receipts. I think we talked about that in one of our last shows together. But you've got to be able to furnish receipts for people. People need to see it. People need to feel it. Yeah.
So it can't be hollow. Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. This is great. Valencia, I just wanted you to maybe I just want to give you the opportunity to have a final thought, final word here. I've learned so much and thank you everybody who's come in and been a part of the conversation and put your questions out there that we could actually workshop some of those. I had a great turnout today. Valencia, you want to just kind of close us out with a final thought?
Yeah, I just, you know, I want to thank you for creating this space. I want to challenge everyone who's joined or will be listening later to get comfortable being uncomfortable and lean in to those hard or tough conversations and know that that's okay. And the more you do it, the more practice you have, the easier it gets. Yeah, I just want to leave people with that. And I would say, finally, offer grace, because we are all at a different place in our journey. So we're going to meet people where they are, but we're also going to offer grace to people.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I love that. Offer grace. That's powerful. These conversations are worth having, everybody. Please have them. Valencia, thank you so much again. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Take care, everybody. God bless. I will see y'all tomorrow. Take care.